serious. What scene from a movie, show or video game never fails to make your eyes tear up, no matter how many times you've watched it? There are two films which I cannot watch because my emotions will overwhelm me and I won't be able to stop crying. Is Terms of Endearment, the scene where the daughter is in the hospital dying of cancer and mom is at her side and she nods off, then wakes up finding her daughter had passed away while she slept, is a very old film from the 1950s starring Jackie Gleason. It's called Jigget. Gleason plays a mute homeless man trying to care for a little girl. Some of the scenes about what the townspeople put him through and how he tries to care for the little girl, I just fall to pieces. Saving Private Ryan tell me in A Good Man to Know that in 70 years he never even told his wife what happened. He lived every day knowing that man died to give him a life. And after all those years he still wasn't sure he deserved it. And here I am at work wondering who's chopping onions. Also runner-up, the ending of Gladiator, I will see you again. But not yet, not yet. Factor even Simon cried. I have played Detroit Become Human I don't know how many times, but one of the characters is a maid, caregiver android named Kara. She flees her human abuser along with his daughter, Alice. Their adventure is about them trying to get to safety, and particularly Canada. You can get the perfect ending for them. You can also have a series of heartbreaking endings. In one ending, they attempt to take a boat over the river to get to Canada. They are spied by the Coast Guard and attacked. Depending on what you do, it is possible for Kara to be mortally wounded along with Alice. They reach the shore, Kara holding Alice, and Kara exclaims they made it, they're free, in Canada. Only to look down and realize Alice had died in the water. She sobs, "I love you, Alice," and shuts down right there. It gets me every time. The scene in Marty, 1955, when Ernest Borgnine explains to his mother at the dinner table how lonely he is and how he's given up on the idea of getting married or being happy. There comes a time in a guy's life when he has to face facts. I'm just a fat ugly little man and I got hurt enough. I don't want to get hurt no more. Even if you don't like old movies, seek this one out and watch it. Good stuff. Two scenes from Grave of the Fireflies, when Saga comes out of the hospital where his mom just died and tells Setsuko that their mom is in a different hospital. Setsuko starts to cry saying that she wants to see her mom, and Saga, completely devastated by their mother's death himself, tries to cheer her up by doing flips on a high bar. Setsuko, continuously crying, doesn't even turn around to watch him, and Saga just does one flip after another like a madman, not stopping even though he knows Setsuko won't watch, cause he doesn't know what else to do. Right before Setsuko dies, when she offers stones to Saga, hallucinating they are rice balls, Saga just looks at her in total shock and Setsuko asks if he doesn't want them. Then Saga tears up realizing how bad her condition is. Alright, this thread is making me realize just how much I cry in movies, but Grave of the Fireflies has a special, horrible place in my heart, because I decided to watch it with a group of friends from university while we were all still kind of getting to know each other. We were in a really small department, so the people that got together for a movie night were from all years. Some kids had only been in their undergrad for a couple months and were in the everyone in an intimidating upperclassman stage. I was in third year. There were some alumni who were very respectable. One of our lab instructors even came. We were supposed to watch Totoro, naturally, as that was the premiere pairing with Grave of the Fireflies. No one had seen either movie, but we knew God was sad and Totoro was happy. So we watched the sad one first. Let me tell you, I have never been in a situation of watching a movie and trying not to sniffle, and then looking around the room and seeing everyone else silently bawling. We all sat stoically until Setsuko's death until the lab instructor let out a sniffle and literally everybody simultaneously started audibly crying. We then huddled into a ball, first years, alumni, lab instructor and all, and wept the entire time. We finished the movie, and then decided we deserved Totoro after that trauma. We were literally in the middle of putting the DVD in the slot when the power went out. We tried to wait it out, find it online, everything, until we all just went home with the pit in our stomachs. In Fullmetal Alchemist at Mayhew's funeral, that's a classic crier. Honorable mention to Nina, of course, but that doesn't make me cry every time. Hamilton makes me cry. Obviously his son's death, and also the last song, end of the play, Dear Theodosia, also makes me cry, but more as a standalone song rather than that part of the play. I've only seen it once, but dear Zachary, you know the part. I don't have any non-classic Reddit answers at the top of my head though. The end of both Apollo 13 and The Martian when they're safe and everyone is cheering gets me every damn time. Band of Brothers Episode 9, Why We Fight, when they find the comp at Landsberg, different times get me each time I watch it, but I've watched dozens of times and have never made it through that episode without tearing up. Mass H. Abyssinia Henry when Radar reads the telegram about Henry's plane going down. That scene where Fry's dog waits for him literally forever. I honestly won't even watch that episode anymore. Also, the episode in Criminal Minds when the Reaper gets Haley. I've rewatched the show about a dozen times and I will still cry ugly, hysterical tears through the entire episode. I think it's the mom part of me, knowing exactly what that character is thinking while she waits to die. Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf falling into Moria and the hobbits crying right after. The Two Towers, riding out of Hornburg at dawn and Gandalf's charge down the slope. Return of the King, Rohirrim on the Pelennor Fields. Battle of the Five Armies. The dwarves charge out of the gates of Erebor. Bilbo saying goodbye to Thrin. Bilbo saying goodbye to surviving dwarves. Rudy, I may have told this story on Reddit before but just in case, here you go. I'm 10-11 years old. I'm flying to visit my grandparents. To my surprise they have TVs everywhere in the plane. In 94-95 this was not the norm, so I was excited about watching a movie. I was flying alone, so I was excited that I could pass time by watching a new movie. The movie, Rudy. Yes, I love football and had wanted to see it since it came out a few years earlier. This was best case scenario. Well, at least I thought it was. Towards the end of the movie several scenes get emotional and I couldn't hold back the tears. I'm doing everything I can to hide them because I'm uber embarrassed. I finally work up enough courage to look up and around and I was rather surprised. Not a dry eye on the plane. Grown men were crying uncontrollably. I was still embarrassed but felt better after seeing that the movie got to literally everyone. I still can't watch it around other people because I still cry. Almost 30 years later and having seen the movie several times, I no longer have an excuse. What a great flick. Now, I can't promise you that I will bring you all home alive, but I swear to you now, when we ride into battle, that I will be the first man to step foot on the field, and the last man to step off of it, and I will leave no one behind, dead or alive. We will all come home together. Cole, Hal Moore, we were soldiers. That sort of loyalty to one's man is heartwarming. I always need a tissue during that speech. Whole film is a gut-wrencher. The ending scene of Time's Arrow. BoJack Horseman S4E11, when BoJack's mom asks where she is, and BoJack describes Michigan and the lake house, and how they're eating vanilla ice cream. After how much he resents and totally hates his mother, he decides to do something actually nice. His mother is confused and scared and he reassures her. That entire episode is a kick in the guy. Breaks me right in half just typing this out. The best detail of that scene for me is her slight hesitation when he asks if she can taste the ice cream. As a kid she was never given ice cream. She doesn't know what it tastes like, and you can see that she's actually aware of what BoJack's trying to do. Rather than belittling or insulting him for not knowing that, or taking a chance to make a jab at him, She knows that this is their last real moment together and she chooses to answer in a way that comforts him and gives herself a peaceful and happy moment with him. The fact that in their final moments as a mother and son they both attempt to comfort the other is both touching and unbelievably heartbreaking. Arise, arise, riders of Theoden, spears shall be shaken, shields shall be splintered, a sore day, a red day, ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride now, ride, ride for ruin, dot. And the world's ending, death, 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 dot. 4th Dorlingas, if I haven't busted my tear nut, the violin part of the score usually does it. My husband got me a book about the Hamilton musical for Christmas. It tells interesting facts, has all the lyrics and whatnot. When they were getting ready to perform the play for the first time, they were at one playhouse. The owner and his wife were big fans of the show and were really big supporters during pre-production. I don't know what it would be called for plays. The owner's 16-year-old son passed away. The cast and crew all mourned with them and they took a couple weeks away from the theater. Their first day back was when the cast would rehearse It's Quiet Uptown for the first time on stage. Everyone was extremely nervous, apparently. Lin-Manuel Miranda sent the owners the song a few days after the death and the parents said they had been listening to it on repeat and it really helped them. Funny thing is, this is the movie that made me realize the punk scene is mostly an enormous joke and fashion circle jerk. I was heavily into the punk scene when that movie came out, and holy hell was it ever an accurate portrayal of scenesters and cliques. Most of the people they get involved with end up just sucking throughout the whole film, and heroine Bob was his only real friend. Going with him to visit his messed up dad living in that shed really screwed with me too. Truth be told, my friends showed me that movie because it was the most real punk movie they ever watched, but they only liked it on a surface level and related only to the more screwed up characters in that film. I related mostly to Lillard's character, and after watching that, I ended up slow fading most of that friends group and leaving the scene entirely. The end of Arrival, I won't spoil it for others, but it is such a personal moment for me. She asks a question that is a thought experiment, and people who have never experienced a similar situation to hers think that there is an obvious answer, but the way she unflinchingly and without hesitating answers it the way most people who have actually experienced something like that is super powerful. I asked myself the same question many times and my answer was just as obvious to me as hers was to her. I've never seen a film tackle something like that and produce such a deep answer. I've never seen Doctor Who, but I got recommended a clip on YouTube a few years ago and it still makes me tear up every time. When The Drive, I guess, takes Vincent van Gogh to modern day and shows him the museum, and the guy talks about how amazing he is. Just watching the acting and the portrayal, the pure emotion and happiness on his face is amazing. I've watched it so many times now and it never ceases to choke me up. From The West Wing, the scene with Donna and the president talking with her former teacher, Mally Morello. President Bartlett, whispering, "Tell her where you are." Donna Moss, "Mrs. Morello, I'm in the Oval Office with the President of the United States and it's because of you." The 12th Doctor, from Doctor Who, when he escapes the confession dial by punching his way out through meters of a material 400 harder than diamond, spending down there 4.5 billion years. It's simply the most epic moment in the show. The writing, the acting, the music, it peaked so hard. Peter Capaldi monologued for 50 minutes and it was orgasmic, and Murray Gold went hard as fuck with the music. Doctor Who is silly, sometimes stupid and all, but Heaven Sent stands out as a fantastic moment of television in about every way. And then there are also his two speeches about war and kindness in the Saga version and The Doctor Falls. The train scene in the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Now the train scene got to me, because of the music which is consistently beautiful throughout the trilogy. the context of this scene, and the burning building scene. He knows his powers didn't work, but he still risked everything to save some kid he doesn't even know, and he's doing the same thing with his powers in the train scene. The villain has the woman he loves held hostage, and leaves him with a train that has no brakes, and everyone on board is gonna die when it crashes. Instead of going for the villain, he saves this train full of people, not because he knows them, or he expects praise, but because it's the right thing to do. And he tries method after method until he's literally so exhausted he's going to collapse. And then the people grab him and pull him into the train and gently set him down. And he wakes up, realizes his mask is off, and they give it back. And once Saga comes back to fight him, these people all stand against a villain that could literally turn them into meat piles, and Spider-Man stands tall, if not a little groggy, and faces him. Despite his injuries, his exhaustion, and how tough this guy is. Peter Parker stands tall and faces him, because he is motherfucking Spider-Man. I know you have received orders from our commandant, which he has received from his superiors, to dispose of the population of this camp. Now would be the time to do it. Here they are, they're all here. This is your opportunity. Or you could leave and return to your families as men, instead of murderers. Oscar Schindler, stoic as always, until he breaks down a few minutes later, wondering how many more Jews he could have saved. Lame is, bring him home, and On My Own. White Christmas, when the general comes down the stairs and sees that the entire show is a tribute to him. MCU, Spider-Man's death, Gamora's death, Yonto's declaration to Quill, Widow's death, and of course, Tony's death. The beginning of Up, Doctor Who, the death of River Song, when Amy and Rory leave, the infamous Van Gogh scene at the museum, the librarians, Jake's confrontation with his father's doppelganger. I'm sure no one else will care about this, but the last scene of Digimon Tamers makes me cry like a baby every time. Takato has let Gilman go back to the digital world but promises that they'll play again soon. Then there is a monologue by Takato about how things went back to normal pretty quickly. It ends with, "And I'm happy. But there's just one thing. I made a promise to a friend, and it's a promise I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep." Then he hears a Digignum giggle as he walks past the old hideout. He runs inside and sees the digital portal, and he just says, on second thought, scratch that, I might be able to keep my promise after all. And then I break down. When I first watched Mona, I cried 3 times, first when her grandma dies, and then started sobbing even harder when she came back as a manta ray and pushed Mona's boat on the sea. Then when she talks to her grandma's spirit and sings the song of the ancestors, and finally when she puts the heart back and sings that song about how life can make you go through so much that at the end you're not yourself anymore. I'm sure that one reasons with a lot of people. Also there's an outtake song, More, and the reprise also made me cry. Band of Brothers, Episode 9, American troops find an abandoned concentration camp with hundreds of prisoners still inside and bring them food. Then a medic tells the troops that found them that since the prisoners have been malnourished they can't eat too much too fast or they will kill themselves. The translator first refuses to tell them, then breaks down in tears. I've watched that episode probably 5 times now and I cry every time. Alright. I'm summing this up in one word. Charmed. I don't have one specific scene cause there's at least 5 episodes in every season that have me blubbering like a baby every time. I must mention since that show ended in the early 2000s I still watch it at least once a day cause it's always on TV every morning as I get ready for work and still ... every damn time. I guess if I had to pick one instance though it would be when Paige goes back in time to see what really happened to her adoptive mom and dad, and she was a rebel and a bad kid and felt like her parents died hating and blaming her. Then in the end Leo brings her parents' souls down and they tell her she was never alone. They watched her every move and they are so proud of how she turned out and who she became. I related to that a lot. I was adopted. I was a drug addicted and screw up. I felt like my dad always hated me up to the day he died. He never got to see me change, and to this day that shit gets me going every time. Titanic. Even though on its face that might sound too obvious, but the one scene that gets me every time is when the very old couple accepting their fate by lying in bed together holding hands as the water is pouring in. I'm blubbering just writing this.